Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning. How are y'all today?
Wonderful.
Good. I'm Reverend C.C. Coltrane. I just want to welcome you to Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Dayton. If you're here for the first time, we extend a special welcome to you and thanks for spending your morning with us. We would really appreciate it if you tear off that little strip on the cover of your bulletin and give us your contact information. We promise we're not going to barrage you with trash email. We would, however, love to send you just a little thank you card for being here this morning. And if you'd like to be added to our Wednesday spiritual pick-me-up, once a week you get a little email from me with a spiritual principle in it. You can sign up for that on that little strip I just mentioned. It's hard to know. It's that thing you tear off your bulletin. Giving our reading and invocation this morning is Jerry Blumgold, and our vigil holder is Lenza Smith. What is she doing over there?
I'm just having fun going, yay.
Oh. Catch these movements out of the corner of my eye, and I think, what's Becky doing? So our vigil holder is Lenza Smith, and Jerry and Lana Mayhew will do our interfaith candle lighting, which we do every week, just to remind ourselves that there are sources of wisdom all sorts of places, and we find them in all the great religious and spiritual traditions, which we honor and learn from. Let's see, our kids aged 5 to 10 this morning are with Carol Huseman, who's in the back. And the teens and tweens are with us here in the service. So while the kids make their way back there, let's just hold them in our hearts for a second. Here she comes. These kids are our children are always such open and bright lights. They don't have any of the baggage that we carry around. So today we just bless them. We just know that all that they bring to the world is such a precious gift, that they are our future, and it is unfolding beautifully. So we bless all that happens in the youth program today, calling it good and very good, and knowing that all of us are blessed by it. We love our children, and so it is. Have a great time, guys.
Thank you. Bye. We love you. Have fun.
So now we get to hear a wonderful song featuring Becky. It's like Claudia, is it Carawan? Claudia Carawan, called Moving Inside of Me.
We light the first candle in honor of the science of mind and spirit. The essence of all true religious philosophy is an inner realization of the presence of perfection within and around about. It is the hope of heaven, the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art. Thou art that which I am. We light the second candle in honor of Hinduism. This invisible and subtle essence is the spirit of the whole universe. That is reality. That is truth. And you are that. We light the third candle in honor of Buddhism. Every sentient being, even an insect, has Buddha nature. The seed of Buddha means consciousness, the cognitive power, the seed of enlightenment. We light the fourth candle in honor of Christianity. The kingdom of God is inside you, and it is outside you. Those who become acquainted with themselves will find it. And when you become acquainted with yourselves, you will understand that it is you who are the children of the living Father. We light the fifth candle in honor of Judaism. If the inner fire of the heart is kept burning continuously, it will extinguish all negativity. We light the sixth candle in honor of Taoism. The Tao is called the Great Mother, empty yet inexhaustible. It gives birth to infinite worlds. It is always present within you. You can use it any way you want. We light the final candle in honor of the Native American religions. The first piece, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and its powers. And when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and this center is really everywhere, it is within each of us. This is the real peace, and the others are but reflections of this. Today's reading is from Ernest Holmes' Living the Science of Mind. Spirituality is a constant, consistent attempt to feel the presence of God in everything and in everyone. Spirituality cannot be taught, but it can be felt, it can be practiced, it can be embodied. Each in his own consciousness must experience it in his own way, and his way will be the best for him. Indeed, it will be the only way he could do it, because in the secret precinct of the mind, which is alone with God, nothing else can enter. Let's take these words into the silence for a moment. So I know that today is a day that God has made, that we are part of this divine plan. So everything about this service is God expressing. Every note that is played and sung, every word spoken, every aspect of this center today is God unfolding. And I know right where we are expressing that energy of life and love. So I know that for us today, we are centered in the truth of the wholeness of the one mind. And I thank you, God, for this time that we are sharing. And together we say, and so it is.
So I don't know whether this happens to you, but it happens to me all the time because people ask what I do and I tell them and they want to know who I'm with and I tell them and they say, and what's that? Right? So when I tell people out there that we at Centers for Spiritual Living are spiritual and not religious, a lot of times they say, well, what does that mean? Or what's the difference? And there are a lot of kind of little buzzword answers that I could give. Deepak Chopra said, religion is belief in someone else's experience. Spirituality is having your own experience. Another person said, religion is following somebody else's beliefs and spirituality is figuring out your own beliefs. And I found a couple of definitions I actually quite liked. I like this one. Spirituality is perhaps the most natural thing there is. It is simply your own conscious self, recognizing that you are more than just a body, that you are a soul with infinite potential. And another one that I've heard is that religion is a set of rules to follow and spirituality is exploring who you really are. And last week, we talked about Ernest Holmes' definition of religion, which he said was our attitude toward God. I really like that, our attitude toward God. It can be very, very personal, right? In today's quote, he defines spirituality as a constant, consistent attempt to feel the presence of God in everything and everyone. Spirituality cannot be taught, but it can be felt, it can be practiced, it can be embodied. Like all the good mystics, all the mystics, period, Holmes goes beyond just us. He says it's not just us, he's enjoining us to feel and see and sense the presence of God in everything and in everyone. I think spirituality, the way I define it, is to realize that we're one with that, whatever it is you want to call it. I call it God, you can call it the universe, the spirit, life, whatever it is, and then acting that way. Realizing it and then acting that way, or trying to act that way. It's acting that way that leads to that embodiment that Holmes was talking about. You know, we can't embody anything unless we use our bodies. That's what it means, you know, to embody is to make it part of all that you are. And so we start acting that way. And when we have a feeling coupled with an action, and we do that again and again and again, it starts to become who we are, right? We embody it. So I think spirituality is about doing all we can to embody that which we say we believe. That spirit, God, the universal presence is everywhere, in everything, and in everyone. And that includes us, which is sometimes the hardest place of all to realize that it's here too. Like, I can see God in you, but sometimes I look in the mirror and think, nah, I got skipped. Somebody skipped me that day. In the process of uncovering that embodiment, that connection, that deep understanding, we travel along sometimes arduous path. Because in the beginning, we start out by discovering who we think we are. Who we think we are, which of course is who we are not, really. Who we think we are is who we are not, right? As a result of being born into human form, we have of necessity this thing called the ego. The ego is a necessity. It's the thing that lets us get by in the world. But it's also the thing that we come to recognize as who we are not before we begin to recognize who we are really. We're trained up instead to think that the ego and its identifiers define who we are. You ask somebody, you know, how are you and who are you? And they might say, I'm a banker, I'm a wife, I'm a member of Centers for Spiritual Living, and I play a lot of golf, right? Or they might say, I'm a teacher, I'm a single man, I care for my elderly parents, whatever it is. And after a couple of months of spiritual practice, meditation and prayer and coming to services on Sunday and all those things, that same person might say, I am an immortal spirit having a human experience. That's progress. But what happens when things don't go the way we think they should go? What happens to us even though things appear to be going well and we're feeling really spiritually strong and we get bad news? Or we blow a tire, or we're disappointed or hurt? How do we then respond? If you're like nearly all of us, there's first an attempt to figure it out. How did this happen? How did this happen? And then we look for someone or something to blame, or some way to justify what's just happened, or to justify our own behavior, or to defend ourselves. We look for some way to stop the psychic pain we're experiencing. Some way to make it not our fault. You ever been fired from a job? What happened when that occurred? You know, what happened inside? Or have you ever had someone break up with you and walk out the door? Or been seriously ill or injured or flat broke? Ever had a huge expense that you didn't see coming down the road and you think, what am I going to do now? What happens with inside of us when these things occur? We kind of go a little nuts, don't we? We go a little nuts. We start to react. Whatever peace we used to be enjoying is long gone. And we are in full reactive mode looking for a scapegoat. Looking for something to give us relief. And what I want to tell you is that these kinds of occurrences are opportunities for us to find out who we are not. Who we are not. We're not the ego. We're not the thing that's kicking up such a fuss. We're not the part of us that's looking for somebody to blame. We're not the blame we seek to assign. We're not the justification we seek to find. We're not the one who screwed up and brought this upon the situation into our life. We're not any of that. That's not who we are. We're not our reactions. We're not our egos. Just knowing that all those things are who we are not kind of lets us peek under the veil a little and see what's really there. It lets us open up to realizing who we really are. Who we really are doesn't require us to believe in it, right? It just is. If we are embodiments of this whole universe, this thing called life, we don't have to believe that. It simply is. What we're trying to do is realize it. Let it into our thinking, our conscious awareness, so we can let it shine out a little bit, so we can bring it forth in what we do. That is spirituality, I think, because under this carapace of ego, who we really are is consciousness. Who we really are is power and light. We're the divine made manifest. And if that is true, we start to realize that once we realize we're not our egos. Where our egos are necessary, so we can walk and talk and not step in front of buses, but they're not who we are. I think that when we look at what we find under that carapace, we see a little bit, we begin to see a little tiny bit of who we are. But before we can even do that, we have to realize who we are not. And one of the really good ways to see the shape of the ideas that we have about ourselves, one of the really good ways to figure out who we are not is to start acting like who we really are. Because when we look at this idea that the divine is everywhere around us and we are it in motion, and we set an intention to act that way, it kicks our egos into like high holy gear. You know what I mean? They go nuts. They go crazy. For example, if we see, if we set an intention that we're going to today, just for today, I'm going to see the divine in everyone I meet or have contact with, then all we have to do is turn on the evening news, right? And it would, no matter what side of the political spectrum we're on, we're going to be going, oh, not them, I can't see the divine in them, they're not, no, that guy was absent that day too, right? All we have to do is drive in traffic. All we have to do is walk out of our door, out of meditation, go somewhere new, stand in the long line at the supermarket, or stand in the express line behind someone who has 25 items. And that'll do it. That will do it. That's all it takes, right? All we have to do is take ourselves out of our space of meditation, and our ego will be showing us who we're not. And then our first response is usually, oh God, my actions are out of integrity with what I say I believe. And so we start to beat ourselves up. That is who we are not as well. We are not the mess-ups. We are not the lapses. We are not the one who wants to punish. We don't need or deserve punishment. If we can hold those two things in our minds, that every single day is giving us an opportunity to see who we are not, because our egos will be in action, and that we are not lacking if we don't meet up to that high standard of who we really are. Then we'll start to see the contours of who we are not. And once in a while, a corner will lift and we'll see this enormous beam of light streaming out. That's who we really are. That's who we really are. The work of spirituality is finding out who we really are. And it consists of continual willingness to see with the eyes of the heart rather than the eyes of the ego. It consists of a dedication to trying to act from and as who we really are rather than from as who the ego wants to tell us we are, or who we, believe we are, or the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. There's a great section in the book The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle about this. It's this month's recommended reading in that little booklet that we made of the whole year. He writes, who you think you are is also intimately connected with how you see yourself as treated by others. Many people complain that others do not treat them well enough. Who they think they are is this: I am a needy little me, and my needs are not being met. They believe they have nothing to give, and that the world or other people are withholding from them what they need. Their entire reality is based upon an illusory sense of who they are. As a matter of fact, their reality is based on who they are not, right? And that's true for most of us, I think, at least for part of our lives. And Tolle uses the adjective I'm trying to learn to say his name right, it's Tolle. Tolle uses the lack of abundance as an illustration. He says, if the thought of lack has become part of who you think you are, you will always experience lack. Rather than acknowledge the good that's already in your life, all you see is lack. Likewise, if you think you're unlovable and that is part of who you think you are, you will always experience your unlovableness. If the thought that you are lonely is part of who you think you are, you will always experience loneliness. If the thought that you are whatever, that's what you will be experiencing if that's part of who you think you are. And Tolle goes on and says, whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you are withholding from the world. You are withholding it because deep down you think you are small and that you have nothing to give. That right there is the definition of who you are not. The one, that's what you think you are, but it is who you are not. So what we do is, instead of listening to our egos that tell us that we don't have enough to give anything away, whatever we're talking about, what we do is instead we start tuning in and living from and acting as if the divine fullness, as if we could feel it within ourselves. And we do start by acting as if. Because who we really are is the source of all abundance, right? If we're one with the universe, it's who we are. That's who we really are. The source of all good. Whenever we think financial abundance is being withheld from us, in truth, we already have it. But unless we allow it to flow out from us, we'll never know we have it. How do you experience anything? When it moves through you, right? This is true whether it's love, it's true whether it's time, it's true whether it's patience. It doesn't matter. You experience it, you have it, when it flows through you. If someone tries to put it in from the outside, it's kind of like, we're made of Teflon, and it just bounces right off until we let it flow through us. And so when we feel like something's being withheld from us, the answer, of course, is to give it. Because we can't receive what we don't give. Outflow determines inflow, Tolle says. And that's true whether it's praise or appreciation or money or loving care or time or whatever else. However, we did just ask all of you to make a pledge to Center for Spiritual Living, so this is a good time to talk about money, right? Plus, it's one of the easiest things to see. It's finite and it has a form and a shape. It's very easy. It's a very powerful place to work because who we think we are is completely intertwined with our financial state. We teach ourselves in this society that if we don't have enough, we are not enough, right? Which is the craziest thing ever. Talk about who we are not. I am not a wad of $1 bills. I'm not. And none of you are either, right? I'm not even a wad of $100 bills. I am not what I have. You are not what you have. So Tola talks about this a lot. He says, start noticing the abundance all around you. There is fullness everywhere. In the rain, in the snow, in the juiciness of an apple when you bite into it, in the warmth of a smile that's returned when you give one. Have you ever noticed how that almost always happens? Very rarely, if you give somebody a warm smile, will they not smile back at you. But we have to give it before we get it. And what we're also doing is giving permission for somebody else to let it flow through them. When we acknowledge the abundance all around us, and then we begin to let it flow through us as the divine life that we are. All we have to do is simply ask ourselves, in those situations that give us a glimpse of who we are not, what can I give here? How can I serve here in this moment? And then do it. Act as if. Make a pledge. Smile at somebody. Help somebody load their groceries. Stand there and hold the door for the very slow. It might be my husband. He moves slow these days. So you can stand there and hold the door until the person gets through the door, even though you're going, I don't have time for this. Whatever it is. Whatever it is that will serve, just do it. And do it with the intention of acting from who you really are. The abundance that's already there within you. The abundance of everything that's already there within you. And over time, then everything you do and everything that you give increases your sense of abundance. Because you're touching who you really are. You're touching who you really are. This is what Jesus meant when he said, give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. He was talking about everything in life. He was talking about everything. Because the measure is how we let it flow through us. How we contact who we really are. How we are practicing our spirituality in order to get in touch with who we really are. That's what he was talking about. So, as long as we let ourselves be bound by who we think we are, we miss who we really are. When we set out an intention to act from who we really are, we're shown who we are not. Because when we do that, when we take that step, my teacher used to tell me that if I take a step in a new direction or in a larger direction, everything that's unlike where I am now and where I want to be will show up. And it's all who we are not, right? It's the ego trying to say, you can't take over here, sorry. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to stay alive. And so what we have to do is kind of, embrace the ego and nod and smile and say, well, I'm going there anyway. I'm going to act as if. And then the ego realizes that it's still okay. And that actually, being in proximity to this power and light that's inside each one of us is not such a bad deal after all. It's quite an amazing thing. But when we set out with that intent, we start to lift that enormous barrier that lies over who we really are. And if that's not the point of spirituality, I don't know what is. The point is to have a deep experience of the infinite nature of our real self. So when we act from who we really are, we start to begin the process of embodying who we really are. So my invitation to you, and I hope you will take it up with joy and zeal, is to become aware of who you think you are and be open to realizing it's really who you are not. And be willing to peek underneath that veil, the illusion of the ego, and see what's really underneath. See the core of power and light and beauty, and be willing to act from that so that you are moving towards embodiment of your sacred, holy, perfect nature. And so now let's pray together. We'll also be praying for Center for Spiritual Light Center for Spiritual Living Suncoast, and Temenos, which is in Coral Beach, and Cocoa Beach, I'm sorry, and Temenos Spiritual Center, which is in Ukraine. And so join me as we simply allow our awareness, our conscious awareness, to move from the head, from that busy, busy, busy place called the head, down into the heart, which is a vast and still and beautiful place. And with each breath, we sink into that vastness and that stillness and that beauty. The heart, which is the dwelling place of the sacred, of the infinite, of that which we really are, is like a whole universe. It is a universe of light, of color, of joy, of happiness, of peace, of abundance, of all good things. For it is the place that shows us the very nature of this universe. This infinite universe, which is creative, filled with good, and about which we are always at choice. It resides in this heart of each one of us, as it resides in the heart of the universe, which is everywhere. As our reading this morning said, at the center of the universe is the Great Spirit, and that center is within each one of us. And so as we just realize and savor this environment of the heart, what I know right now is that everyone in this room says yes to living from this core of power and light and beauty and joy and wisdom that is already who they are. And that we as a community do likewise, so that we are shining more brightly than ever, and that when we go out into the world in order to serve, in order to give the gifts that we are here to give, in order to experience life flowing out from us, we do so in full awareness that this same core of power and light and beauty is in every person we see. It is in everything. It is in every organization. It is in even a grain of sand or a stone or a tree or a flower. We see that, and the divine within us responds to that, so that we allow it to enter us and to fill us and then to flow out from us, and we realize that we are the source of all our own abundance, that we are the source of all good, for it is as we allow it to enter and flow through us that we experience it. And so what I know for this community and for everyone in it is that greater sense of the abundance of life, of the beauty of life, of the richness of life, of our absolute essential nature as life. And I know the same for Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast and for Temenos Spiritual Center, that everyone involved with them is lit up with spirit, lit up and willing to give all that they are in order that this beauty and wisdom and hope and joy and happiness and abundance continues to flow through them individually and collectively. And it begins to change everything. It begins to change things in Ukraine, way, way far away. There on the Black Sea, things begin to change and take light and move into new forms and new relationships and new wonders. And it begins to take place in Florida, so that Space Coast becomes a center of light and a place of connection for more than just their community, but for all those around them. And it happens right here in Dayton, so that we each become all that we are meant to become. And so does this community. And so it is with deep gratitude that I simply acknowledge the truth of this. It's already who we are. We say yes to it. We welcome it. We open mind, heart, body, and soul to it. Life is good. Life is beautiful. And so it is in deep gratitude that I simply release all of this, knowing that that which flows through us, this universe, this power and presence, this divinity, has already said yes to it. We trust that. We breathe it in. We let it flow out, knowing that more flows in, that we are the place of fullness. And to acknowledge and ground this, we say together, and so it is.
I am just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life.
We are all just drops within a stream, flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. And just a seed, a message seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
Amen and amen. Now we have an opportunity to give from who we really are in support of this community as it becomes all that it really is. And so I ask you to give generously, because not only does the center deserve your support, Outflow determines inflow, and there is nothing I want more than for every one of us here to experience the real abundance of life in all ways possible, in the most wonderful ways possible. And so, as our ushers pass the baskets, just remember that you are the very abundance of God. And let's affirm together. I know the activity of abundance in my life.
I know the activity of abundance in my life.
And in this center.
And in this center.
I give and receive generously.
I give and receive generously.
From this everlasting flow of good.
From this everlasting flow of good.
And so it is. Oh geez, announcements and stuff. But first, there's somebody I really would like to thank because she always gives so much to our community and she's like a hider. You don't often notice her, but she's here today. I want to say thank you to Sherry Buckner who feeds us with the Consciousness Cafe and your, oh, I'm going to walk right into the camera. I went the wrong way. Who feeds us in the Consciousness Cafe and is always around with her beautiful smile and her lovely heart. And,
Yes.
And she's just fabulous. So thank you, Sherry. She's a pretty special woman. And,
Yes, she is.
she does tend to hide in the background. So we called you out, Sherry. Great, wonderful gifts you give to this community. You know, every week I've tried to tell you a little bit about our spiritual practitioners and their willingness to pray with you after the service. All these beautiful people wearing the white or the teal stoles. All you have to do is walk up and say, I'd like prayer, and they will find a quiet corner with you. And their gift, their talent, their training, their experience is to be able to see the spiritual truth of the situation even when you can't. And they love to do that with you on Sundays. They also can meet with you individually for a longer session if there's something that you need to explore a little bit more. They will not only pray, but they'll give you some spiritual homework. And some of them will like give you a little, tap upside the head if you need it to help you move through whatever it is that's troubling you. Sometimes we all just need to be reminded of who we really are, right? All you have to do is call one of them. Their numbers are all on the back of the bulletin. And they will set up a session for some longer and deeper contact. The practitioners also teach classes, and we have 3 really wonderful ones coming up. 2 of them have already started, but I think you can still sneak in, right? Foundations of Science of Mind on Tuesday nights, Essential Earnest Tones on Monday nights, and Prosperity Plus on Thursday nights. They are all about learning to embody who we really are and how to pull up that veil and take a look underneath. So there's sign-up sheets for all 3 of those classes. If you're going to take Prosperity Plus, we need your $53. It's $4 postage, $49 materials fees, because we have to order the kits from somebody else, and that's what they cost. We want to get that done this week, so if you can get that money to us by tomorrow morning at the latest, we'll order them tomorrow. Prosperity Plus is about so much more than money. It's about all those things we talked about. It's about increasing the flow, the inflow, so that the outflow increases as well. If you are new or newish and would like to, please join me after this service for Rap with the Rev, which is an informal meeting where we just get to know each other a little better. There's some soup in the social hall, and then you can come into the adult classroom, which is right across from the lending library at around, noonish or 10 after. And we'll just get to know each other a little better and talk about our spiritual journeys and what this center might be able to do for you. There's a lot in your bulletin today as far as events, upcoming stuff, and all that. So please take a look at all those flyers. If you didn't get a pledge card in the mail and would like one, there's some at the Welcome Center, and there's some back by the door. That is for next year, and we just ask you to consider and think about what you plan to give. And obviously, if your life changes, so can that pledge. It is not that we're going to send you a bill and charge you interest if you don't pay. It is simply your forecast, and it helps us forecast as well. I think that is it for announcements. I would just invite you to give everybody around you a hug before you leave, because hugs are very good for us. Introduce yourself to someone you don't know well. Make a new friend. So let's stand up for our closing affirmation and our closing song, and thanks to everybody involved in making today happen. Our closing song today is One Love. But first, today I choose to see everything.
Today I choose to see everything
That shows me who I am not.
that shows me who I am not.
I open to who I am.
I open to who I am,
And I take action
and I take action
to embody that truth in all I do.
to embody that truth in all that I do.
I shine.
I
I shine.
I
I shine.
shine.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a fabulous week.